Here. Chairman Schaefer.
Here. Item number 2 is approval of the motion summary for the meeting held February 20th, 2017. It's recorded and transcribed.
A motion for approval as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 3 is time for public comment for anything that's not on tonight's agenda. So if you have something you wish to speak about that's not on tonight's agenda, you can raise your hand. We'll bring you forward to the table, give you your name and address for the record. We'll start with you, sir.
Michael Shirley.
I need to come to the table here so I'll get recorded. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see, my name's Michael Shirley, and I live on 231 West Hall. And I'd like to speak a moment or two about the issue concerning the cars that are going up and down the street. So I lived there for about going on 2.5, 3 years. And so Delaware has occasionally placed a police officer there or other measures to show individuals how fast they're going. However, with the current number of cars that go by, these measures are limited at best. So I truly think there are only 2 ways to take care of this issue. One is with speed humps, and I know there's several cities in Ohio that are currently doing this: Akron, Toledo, Powell. The other way, I think, would be to make West Hall Drive a one-way street going from Liberty over to 23, and it would end at where the dentist office is, and that would cut the traffic. But the main thing, I think, to take care of this issue, it's got to be speed humps. I think right now, I know talking to some individuals that are trying to sell their houses, this is an issue. I received a letter the other day from Delaware, the auditor, telling me that they want to increase my property value, of which I think those on West Hall Drive at best are staying where they're put. And maybe they're being negatively impacted by this issue. So I'm encouraging, I strongly think Delaware needs to do something immediately. This has been going on way too long, and there needs something more than just a simple fix. I appreciate you allowing me to talk.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. You come to the table safely?
Yep, we have some more input for West Hall Drive as well.
Thank you. I didn't mean that. That's all right. It's for you.
You both just give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. Hi, my name is James Bauer. What else did you need my address? 176 Hall Court, Delaware. David Haig, 1 Hall Court.
Go ahead, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you hearing us tonight. Just want to introduce myself again. My name is Jim Bauer. I'm currently the Homeowners Association president. I've had the privilege of holding that office for 2 weeks now and coming up here. But I also want to give you a little bit background on me so that you understand that I'm just not, I know you have a lot of complaints on neighborhoods. Everybody thinks their neighborhood has the worst traffic problems in the city. But I moved here in 1979, and for 20 years I was a police officer with the department, served with Chief Pijanowski, and retired in 2004. During that time, I ran a lot of traffic details, did a lot of traffic surveys in neighborhoods. So I know what the flow of traffic is like. Like I said, a lot of people think they have problems. Some are valid, some are perceived. I believe the problem that is on West Hall Drive is a valid complaint. It's one that's been going on since the subdivision was created in 1996. At that time, I was on a committee through the police department, led by Sergeant Stan, how to curb the traffic, that there was such a high volume, and we made recommendations. Those recommendations, for whatever reason, were never implemented. But I have been involved in the community. I've lived there for a little over 2 years, but I've been involved for 20 years running traffic and observing. This street definitely does have problems. The problem is that is no longer a residential street. It has become a cut-through street. It is a cut-through because it is the shortest distance between Liberty Road and US 23 or to the shopping center. And it's made worse by the curb cut that was made at the time of the development of letting the shopping plaza traffic come out. Just today coming here, an inexperienced driver pulled right out in front of me, made a left-hand turn, and I had to slam on the brakes to avoid. We have done extensive work as a neighborhood, as a homeowners association. We have had meetings about making sure that we keep our speed to the correct minimum, that we have to lead by example. We have had signage put up of no through trucks over a certain weight. Continues to be a problem. We have cement trucks, we have touring buses, everything going over the limit. Stop signs, a three-way stop sign at Hall Court and West Hall. I sit in my front yard and I'll constantly watch vehicles not do a rolling stop. It's not even a yield sign stop, just a continuous turn. It's a high volume of traffic. We've done stealth traffic surveys. In a 48-hour period, over 6,500 cars went down Hall. We have 60 homes approximately in our neighborhood. 60 homes do not produce 6,500 vehicles. It is just come to the point. I've sat and watched the stop sign. At one point, I counted 20 vehicles that went through that intersection within a 1-minute period. Like I said, this has been a problem. Back in the 90s, we asked for calming devices. I think we have gone through your calming, your guide. We have met the criteria of meet with the neighbors. We have tried the signs. Signs are ineffective. There are too many things going on in a person's vehicle anymore. They don't pay attention to them. I will go to your own signage that you have on West Central Avenue that the police officers affectionately named Can't Open a Bridge. There are signs up and down West Central that say 12-7. They have yellow flashing lights. Pretty good idea that there's something up ahead, and yet we have vehicles that hit the bridge. Signage is only good if people are paying attention. We have done that. We have asked the police department for increased police presence. Chief Pijanowski, thank you very much. He has done a wonderful job of having police officers available when the time allots, but we understand that cannot be 24/7. He's got limited manpower, limited budget. This problem is only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. There's Meeker Farms or development is going up the shopping center. That's going to increase traffic on 23. Sawmill has gone through. I can see right now you're going to make improvements to Slack Road. So people are going to take 42 to Slack Road, to Liberty, to Hall, to 23. I did a little timing test. I took that route compared to going the way they should go of taking 42 to the 23 interchange and taking 23 southbound. Saves 5 minutes by making the shortcut. So this is just going to, Sawmill's going to build up the Slack Road. It's just going to increase. At the time we were told we don't like speed bumps. Traffic tables, calming tables, anything, we are willing to work with the committee to try to reduce the speed and the volume. We don't have the answers, but we're here to try to get something in motion to get that done. So it's gone 20 years. It can't go any longer. It's just going to get worse and worse. And safety, people will not let their kids cross the road without supervision. It shouldn't be that way. It's a non-response, emergency response road as designated by the city. So it's not that fire equipment or police vehicles are using that exclusively to get through. It's only if they're coming through. So we are just asking that this be looked into and that we finally get some answers of eliminating 6,500 vehicles in 2 days and getting it down to a realistic number, because like I said, we are the shortcut, we are the closest distance between those two roads, and nothing's going to change that. So some has to be done. So thank you for your time.
I've got a couple questions for you.
Yes.
One, would you say the problem is primarily volume or primarily speed? And secondly, when you mentioned a while back some recommendations, or maybe they weren't put in place, do you remember what they were?
Off the top of my head, let's see, we had recommended installation of calming tables. We were told that they couldn't because they interfered with snow plows. Well, the city has now installed calming tables in certain neighborhoods. We asked for a redesign of the Walmart entrance, possibly the elimination of the curb cut on Hall, but to make the Walmart main entrance the main entrance, right? Currently, you either come in, if you're going northbound at Wendy's, you come on Hall, and to make that the entrance. And the other thing they had asked, and the barn door is swung open on this, we had asked for trees to be planted. We had consulted with different people for curb trees to be installed that created a canopy effect over the roadway, which has a natural calming effect that slows traffic down. And they installed trees, but they didn't install trees that canopy over the road. Those were some of them that I remembered what was going on. As far as the speed and the volume, every neighborhood has speed. I mean, I used to live, before I moved here, I lived in Hays Colony for 30 years. I lived on Governor Street, which, you know, nobody should be on that list, but there were speeders. You're going to have speeders. It's right now, it's a combination of both. It really is. It's a combination. I couldn't tell you it's one or the other, but the volume is definitely out of hand.
And I have a little more information. I just wanted to add. My name is David Hay, and I said I reside at 180 Hope Court. Lived in Delaware for 3 years now. We have contacted the city engineering department recently, and they have done a great job in sending us information on the most recent stealth data studies for, thank you, for West Hull Drive, Hawthorne, Firestone Drive, and Cotswold. As Jim mentioned, we only have 62 homes on West Hull Drive and Court, as compared to a much larger number of homes for Firestone Drive, which has approximately 454, Hawthorne 370, and Cotswold, Somerset 203 homes. And yet the latest stealth data report shows a significantly larger volume of vehicles using West Hull Drive on a daily basis. And then we broke the numbers down in those different stealth reports. All 4 of those were done this year. 3 were done actually last month, and ours was done in March of this year. We broke those different reports down on a per hour basis. Cotswold came in at 26 cars per hour. Firestone Drive, which already has the speed tables that have, as I understand, Firestone came in at 42 cars per hour. Hawthorne Boulevard at 67 cars per hour. And West Hull Drive, as Jim mentioned, straight shot 23 to Liberty, 123 cars per hour. So over twice as much as the second closest street for us. And you mentioned we're not only a cut-through street, but also the shortest distance street from 23 to Liberty. And when you look at that on the map, anyone who has GPS and not from the area, they're going to take that shortest distance to get over there. And it's only going to increase. And since we're not a main response route on West Hall Drive, we would, as Jim mentioned, we would just like to have a serious discussion regarding the implementation of speed calming devices. Ideally speed tables, but we really feel that this would address a number of the traffic problems, the speeding, the volume of cars, and also the three-way stop sign. And should create a much safer environment on West Hall Drive. So we thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to get input from the chief. Is anybody else here to statement on Hall Drive?
I believe that's it tonight. Since we have, with all due respect, since it has been going on for quite a while, a 20-year period, could we set a time period as far as that you may be able to get back to Jim or a reasonable time
The
period?
chief and the engineering department have to say first, but let me get some input from them, and then we'll see what they recommend as far as how we work handle this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This was very good.
No, sir.
I mean, they're correct. There is volume. It is a connector street, and it is a shorter connector street in that area. So we concur that there's a high volume. I think the ADT in that area is like 3,500 cars, somewhere in that
Yeah.
area. And we have discussed it extensively as a staff. So allow engineering to kind of talk about the design of the street, but we're kind of stuck with the design of the street. And enforcement 24/7. We try to be down there, and you're correct, we can't be down there all the time because we actually have more than a handful of very similar issues elsewhere. So we have kicked around some resolutions. One of the things we want to wait for is that light that's going in at Hawthorne. So Jessica, I'll let you kind of pick it up.
And that light's going in with the Coglins Crossing development that you had
Yes,
spoke
I
about.
read that.
They're currently in design. It's in the stage 2 design right now, and it should be completed later this year, first of next year, and probably go to construction. So, because they have to have all the roadway improvements completed prior to them actually opening the development. To speak towards, like he said, it is a volume issue. Based on our calculations, we usually assume about 10 trips per day per household, and that's on the high end, depending if you're retired or going to work. And you have children going to work, you have people making trips to the store, you have your trips to and from, but that only accounts for maybe 30 to 40% of the traffic that should be on that road. The remainder is cut through traffic. So that is a fact in that matter. We do have many different alternatives that we can look at doing on the street from a traffic calming perspective. I know you mentioned speed humps, and I'll let the fire chief, go on with that on his thoughts on the speed humps. There are other alternatives. The thing we have to keep in mind is if we do deter traffic from coming to the street, it is going to go elsewhere. So we've got to kind of weigh everything and look at all the different alternatives of the best way to do this. So.
And may I add that I'm not going to argue on the 10 times trip, but on the stealth is placed in front of the middle of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So people on one side may never go across that stealth, and people on the other side may never go across that stealth. If one's going out to Liberty all the time, one's going, and they're not even going to get counted. So to me, that still keeps the numbers up there at the 65,
For 2 days.
because they're not crossing that imaginary line that's counting them as traffic.
And we've taken the counts at different locations, and I think we're pretty accurate of saying about 3,000 vehicles per day. As many times as we've taken it over the past maybe 5 years, I think we're pretty accurate from that standpoint. But
And on the speed, the only fault I would find with the speed is a lot of times the speed is set up in the middle of middle of the road, and you're going to find if the road runs east-westbound, you'd be better off having it at the far end. To get eastbound traffic, having it at the far end and let people get the speed that they've built up to they're still building their speed when they pass that checkpoint.
Mhm.
And it's still increasing until you have to start to slow down the stop sign. I mean, that's just a fact that
Yeah.
they go as fast as they can and keep building it until they realize they need to bring it back down.
And I know right now, all of our 85th percentile speeds that we're getting is right around 29 and 30. And I mean, we've done a lot of studies in the past few years too. So the speed is borderline. I wouldn't say it's a total speed problem. I think it's more of your volume concern.
Yes, it's a safety issue, you getting across the street in the intersections, in the crosswalks, due to the volume of traffic.
You also mentioned, Jessica, on the 30 to 40%, 10% of 6,540 vehicles that was done this March would bring it to 650 cars, which is still extremely high for 60 homes.
But you were referring to, it's
Correct,
a 2 days worth of data.
correct.
So,
But even then, that's respectfully disagree with the 10 trips.
it's just a basic traffic engineering. It's across the board what all traffic engineers assume for residential household development. Plus you also have the dentist office up at the front too that will
But
generate
that
some
wasn't-
trips.
But it was put at, the stealth box was put at 267 West Hell Drive.
So unless someone's coming in off Liberty Road,
To
they
access
they
the,
wouldn't be counted. And if they're using that, it's still through traffic. I mean, it's through traffic if they're trying to, in my opinion, just trying to get on the 23rd. It's through traffic if they're trying to get into the shopping center off of West Hall. So
And if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and interject from the fire department. Good evening. And I think since the 11 years that I've been here, I think this is one of the subjects that has come up periodically every several years, is the traffic on Hull Drive. And I can appreciate that. I know we've looked at it and so forth. I know our Public Works has done a lot of work in designing a traffic calming manual for us to begin working on. Since I've been here, I know there hasn't been any speed tables installed prior to my arrival here. There was some testing done, and those speed tables or humps have remained on Firestone. But having said that, I know one of the things that we have tried to do is steer away from the installation of speed humps, speed tables, and I still stand behind that because of the the delay in our responses for that matter, police responses, and also the use of snowplows and getting into the subdivisions that will delay our response. But having said that, at the same time, I don't want to say that I completely throw that out. And I think, obviously there's concern. I think we need to roll up our sleeves. We need to look at what the solutions are and try solving those. But I just don't want to say we're going to put speed tables when we haven't looked at all the alternatives. And obviously, as we see, there's some discussion on different thought processes, even weighing in some of the questions as far as the data. I think by rolling up our sleeves, we can come up with a workable solution for everybody. And if that ultimately leads to speed tables and that'll solve the problem and be done safely, then I'll support it as well. But Jessica also brought in a good good thought with this as well, is why we're focusing on this one street. There's a lot going on in this whole area, and by solving the problem, potentially bring the problem to another location. And I think, looking at all the streets that cut through, which is Somerset as well as Hawthorne, needs to be looked at as well as the impact, because as we're sitting here trying to solve this problem today, we'll be dealing with those problems next year or the year after. So I think more a comprehensive look at how to solve that would be in the best interest of all of our citizens. Ultimately, I think it can be, solved. How we get there, that's still yet to be determined.
thank you. And like we said, we're not saying this is what we want. We are just asking for the city to find a way to help the subdivision with its traffic. We do not have the answers. We don't know whether speed tables are the answers. And you're right. And this goes years back. There should have been a major road that had cut through there. Like Meeker is now between 23 and Stratford. Something should have been put through their main artery to handle that traffic instead of funneling it through the subdivision. But you look at the map and there's really no room to put something like that anymore with the neighborhoods, and then you got the preserve right after that. So we don't have we're not suggesting we have the answers. We're just asking that we have dialogue on how we can get this solved.
Comments?
The speed tables that are in my ward on Firestone, so we had huge discussion just a few years ago about, there was a huge group of residents that wanted them removed because they slowed down emergency response. And there was some research presented at that time that showed that they actually sped cars up because there was a perception that the speed tables were slowing them down. And so in between them, they were actually driving faster. And so they had the opposite impact of speeding up cars rather than slowing them down. And so that was a concern at the time of, and I believe the developer put those in, not the city.
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct.
So, and then there were it was split with half of the people wanted them taken out and half of the people wanted them to stay, and they're already there. So.
And we understand there's some possibly in Cheshire Crossing too, we're not sure.
Correct.
It could be rumble strips, it could be anything to let people know that we're just asking for something. And I'll be blunt. I'll be honest. We're taking 6,500 cars or 125 a day. The next closest is 50. Some of the other subdivisions, if we push them over, it would even it out a little bit. That I don't want to throw our grief onto somebody else. At the same time, we've got it where parents aren't wanting to let their kids cross the road. We got 3 crosswalks in that. One is at Liberty Road. You cross that, holding your heart because people come off of Liberty Road. They have no idea you're in the crosswalk. The other one is at West Hall and Hall Court. People don't stop for the stop sign. So when you're crossing, you make sure you watch that car till it comes to stop. And the other crosswalk is right at the entrance of the Walmart cut through where people are they don't stop it there. They just wheel out and make a left-hand turn. So there's no safe place to cross the street there. This is a safety factor. It's not just the volume of traffic. It's not just the speed. It's the safety factor that is concerning to residents. And the other two are inconveniences that we're handling that much. But when we're having overloaded trucks and everything else going down our road, because we had to call the company and say, get them off our road. And we've forwarded the information to the police department. They've been great at following up on it, but it's a problem. It's a problem.
Chris?
No. One other quick thing. When you mentioned about Firestone Drive, that being my understanding of main response route to get to, whereas West Hall Drive is not. So it would not impact fire response or
It would
EMT
impact the people if someone called 911 in the neighborhood and that
That's on
slows
that.
them.
on that street.
Well, sure, but I mean, no one person is,
Well, I mean,
if someone's having a heart attack on the street, you wouldn't want your response slowed down by 3 or 4 minutes.
But the city of Delaware's own calming manual says a 3-second delay. 3 seconds.
Okay, we all agree that there's a problem, and I agree with the chief. Long term, we want to be comprehensive about this, but we still need some short term solutions. I think we all agree to that. So
thank you.
we'll continue to work with you, and hopefully by the next meeting of this committee, we'll have some potential ways we can respond to it. So
What happened to the movable blinking speed signs? Are we still?
We're still
utilizing those?
piloting that. We're right. It's on Hawthorne Boulevard. It was on West Hall Drive the first, and then we went to Cheshire Crossing. We're on Hawthorne. We're moving to Cotswold, and then we're moving to other parts of the city. We're still waiting to see on final outcome of what the data shows on those, of whether it's worthwhile or if it's cost effective or not. So
Okay.
Right now, the data is showing that we're potentially decreasing maybe a 1 mile per hour over the 85th percentile. So what we've seen thus far, it's not a huge benefit. So, but we'll see as we go through further streets.
And it also doesn't address cars still continuing to use us as a cut.
The issue I see with that is I'm not sure how we can tell cars that they can't drive down a public street.
But once they
You're
have
right.
work,
I mean, the city, the planners of the neighborhood in the city designed a poor layout of road. And now the residents are paying the price, and every development that goes in from here, whether it be Sawmill Boulevard, the redesign of Slack Road is only adding to that congestion we're gonna see. You are not gonna see these numbers drop. You're only gonna see these numbers go up, the way that it currently stands.
I hear what you're saying, I'm just not sure how we tell, how we meter that. I don't know, I don't have any ideas for that.
well,
I mean, we could, as somebody, address the speed, but you're never gonna be able to address the.
You would have to restrict certain movements at certain locations. Like for instance, I'll give an example. Like if you created a right in, right out at 23 and not being able to make a left in there or a left out, that's going to decrease traffic. Now it is going to hinder the residents of the area there. It could change their travel time to and from wherever they're going. So there's different things we can do, but there's a cause and effect from everything. And
Right.
I'll be honest, not everybody's going to be happy of the outcome either. So.
We'll continue to get on this. And there's no easy solutions, but we're not going to give up on it.
And we understand that. We understand that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Item number 4 is recommendations to extend the no parking zone on Ashburn Drive, 1959 Ashburn Drive.
Chairman Schaefer, members of the committee, this issue came up. We had complained the police department about some near misses at the crosswalk there on Ashburn, leading to the walkway to the community park, and trying to focus to some of the field of view pictures we have. If you turn your head slightly to the right, you will see. I'll pull up the map too, but this is probably the long shot view, but you can see the crosswalk sign, and then the parked cars really block half the crosswalk where someone might actually potentially be in that crosswalk for the northbound lane and not be seen.
Just to give a little history why he's pulling this up too, last year in 2016, we received a complaint earlier in the year regarding this location. And in 2016, we kind of cleaned up the area with the crosswalk and condensed. There was a couple different curb ramps going into the intersection. We condensed that. We enhanced the crosswalk with enhanced striping, the ladder type crosswalk. And we've also enhanced with signage on both sides of the road and advanced signage as you're going northbound. But like he had mentioned, you can still see issues with sight distance in that northbound direction, that a pedestrian could get hidden behind the parked vehicles there.
How many spaces are we talking about taking away?
What we're recommending, let me get out of here, is just moving it down one house further to the east. So right now, this is the crosswalk we're talking about. The no parking is right here. We're recommending taking it right down to this driveway in this area, which would kind of eliminate the blocked view as you make that curve going northbound. I also want to make sure I mention that I did place on your at your positions an email I received from Eric Longstreth. He is a resident at 1946. And weighed in on the issue, more in favor of not extending the no parking zone, but in favor of creating off-street parking for the park and adding enforcement to the area, which I'll note we do enforce, but again, same issue as West Hull. It can't be there all the time, so that presents an issue. I think I forwarded this email to everyone, and then I placed a hard copy at your positions just for your consideration as well.
We heard that from anybody else in the neighborhood or county?
I have not, so we notified, I think, about 5 or 6 houses in the area and did notify the homeowners association as well. From
You want to come forward, ma'am, and give us your name and address?
Good evening. My name's Donna Stusik. I live at 852 Brittany Drive, and I am the president of the Homeowners Association. I've received a number of complaints from parents whose kids have almost gotten hit coming across that crosswalk. One of the biggest problems is people come in off of 521 and they won't slow down. There's a slight bend that you saw on the map, and you just cannot see the crosswalk at all if the cars are parked there. We were talking about even asking to have a stop sign in. Don't know if that would work, but at least we could try a no parking in front of a few houses to open up the visibility of that crosswalk. As in every neighborhood, speed's an issue.
What's your recommendation?
Our recommendation is that we extend the no parking zone down to the north boundary of the driveway, and I'm trying to find the exact address. I don't have the address. At the north driveway of 1959 Ashburn. So this is 1959 Ashburn right here, and we're proposing, we are recommending to extend the no parking zone to this edge of the driveway.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the no parking zone on Ashburn Drive is extended to the north edge of 1959 Ashburn Drive on the recommendation of the police chief.
Is there any discussion from members of the audience? Is there anyone else?
You want to from on this issue?
Okay, then I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Keller?
Yes.
Chairman Schaefer?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
How soon will we see those go in? Change?
We will actually have to draft up a resolution so it goes to council, and as soon as that's passed, they'll probably go in within
Will
the
come
next.
to council Monday?
I don't know if we'll be able to, as long as we can get the resolution to
I just
on
think
Wednesday.
the HOA president will have some information to go back. Let's move, actually, to change within the next month.
Yeah, I would say, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Item number 5 is discussion and consideration of recommendations from the Downtown Parking Advocacy Committee and Enforcement Force Group. Ms. Janowski.
Thank you. Prior to providing this information, I just want to throw out there that this is actually informational. We fully expect, based on our conversations, that this won't leave parking and safety tonight, but we wanted to get something out as a discussion. We realized that our work group was just a small piece of downtown, and that this is from the downtown area, but based on what we were tasked with, we came back with some recommendations as a starting point for those conversations. So a couple things we still have to work on, and we'll probably come back here in the near future with that. One item was removed from consideration because when we started looking at what other groups were doing, we realized that, and specifically the meter rates, we removed that recommendation because that has to be made in conjunction with some other things that are happening as part of the overall consultation and recommendation made by MKSK. But the 3 recommendations we have to extend days and hours of parking enforcement, and that would be an extension to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday. Also to change the time-limited parking downtown from a minimum of 2 hours to a minimum of 3 hours. And then also a recommendation and a change in the fine structure, and we provided some potential changes. One that would kind of meet in the middle with over time and over limit fines. One that would leave the over limit alone and increase the overtime on the meters. But that is the starting point for discussion. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Just to kind of add to that, I know we've talked, you and I, groups talked numerous times. So while we've got these recommendations from MKSK and they're all based on their expertise, I think it's really important that we let the business owners know the reasons behind these recommendations and get their feedback. So we're not really looking for anything tonight as far as more to give you the information that, you know, the committee's been working on, to kind of get your thoughts on it, and then we'll hopefully get some feedback from the businesses.
So just a reference, so the prizes of this committee again, this is,
Who's on your group?
There were, my group was myself, Captain Don Clark, Kelsey Scott was involved, Holly Quain, Scott Gordon, Commissioner Benton, Pat Bailey, George Manzuros. I think that's everyone.
and just and then some of these recommendations came from the study group.
Yeah, we remember we got that, we put the table together for
Right.
short-term, or immediate, short-term or long-term, and these are some of the immediate ones that they said we can do that would solve some of the turnover problems on the time limited spots.
And that, and just so I heard you correctly, it was changing from what is currently a 6 p.m. to an 8 p.m. where you have paper parking, right?
I think now we're 9 to 5, Chief.
I put the draft legislation in there, and it's actually got a strike and bold in it. But I believe right now we're 9 to 6,
That's 6.
and we're going from 9 to 6 to 8 to 8.
And then nothing on Saturdays, changing it to 10 to 8 on Saturdays.
Correct.
That's a huge paradigm shift for the city. It's huge. People will flip out over that.
Yeah, that's why I think it's really important that we, especially hear from the businesses, is how they think it's going to affect them. But on one hand, one of the complaints they have is people parking in those limited spaces and get there at 8 o'clock. Of course, it doesn't get down there until 10, they mark them, they get 2 hours, you know, so now they're there for 4 or 5 hours before they go out.
Yeah.
This would address that, but it obviously it's a change in that, obviously the Saturday thing is a huge change.
Yeah, I can see the weekday thing, but that Saturday thing, I think that's going to just be detrimental to downtown shopping and, you know, restauranting and all that stuff.
I don't like that at all.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I tend to agree that Monday through Friday thing I think is reasonable and would probably help us with the turnover issue. Again, we'll hear from businesses. I think.
Right.
And Kelsey's done an excellent job of reaching out to people and doing information campaigns. I mean, she's remarkable.
She is.
That's a great job.
Delaware to Park.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One of the other items we have yet to discuss, which is coming at our September meeting, but one of the recommendations was to move the 10-hour meters out of the lots. So we're really wrestling with primarily the Franklin Street lot and the East Winter Street lot. There are a number of 10-hour spaces in the William Street lot that we think are now utilized because of the permit system and that they're 10-hour, but really we have a lot of demand for Franklin and Winter Street, and we're, you know, one of the recommendations was push those further out. So we're trying to find some way to meet that recommendation where we're not going to kind of create the same problem we had before where everyone just parks downtown and moves around because it's easier than parking further out. So that's the last item we're really looking at as far as our work group.
And if you remember, KSK said, hey, those should be high turnover lots, get the 10-hour meters out, but don't reduce the number of 10-hour meters. The problem is figuring out where you're going to put them that makes them usable. You know?
Right.
Nothing's easy.
No.
Yeah, we try to take the recommendations that were made and create a resolution that met the kind of parameters of the recommendation. And some of it was, you know, a lot of conversation. I think the hardest one for us is going to be the 10-hour meters, quite frankly, because we see both sides, and we got to be careful, much like the speed issue with, you know, with one move, you know, it creates a move somewhere else, and we just need to be very careful there. That's where I think when we talked earlier as a staff that, you know, some sort of survey just to get the kind of flavor of downtown with some of these recommendations, some of the fundamental recommendations from MKSK and see what to do. But
So Chief, I'm just thinking out loud here. So we're looking at potentially expanding parking in engineering buildings now, 25 or 30 spaces. And then down, there's another location down there on Franklin and the old bank area. So potentially if those lots come into place, would that be places where we could put 10-hour meters that would still be fairly?
I would probably want to ask, I think with Justin with MKSK, because I think his feeling was the lots are probably high demand. They're easy to park in, they're easy to find. So I don't know what you think about that, but that possibly.
I mean, I guess we're just shifting them from the main lot to another lot. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I honestly, I struggle with that one. I really don't have an answer for that. Every time our group did something and came to what we thought was a resolution amongst the group, we sat on it, ended our meeting, and had the members go back and just kind of sit on it, and then also ask around and make sure that they were getting some other opinions, and then coming back, and then we would finalize it. So that's where we landed. We never did find consensus on the fine structure. I think there's a lot of conversation that going from $7 and $10 to $40 was a big jump, but in Central Ohio, our fines are still relatively low, and they've had the effect. So we had the conversation of how do we, you know, if we make it too easy to violate the parking ordinance, we're going to have the problem we had before. So it's, you know, a lot of it's philosophical or theoretical. You don't really know what the balancing point is. So it's a little more difficult than just, you know, making it a little more user-friendly, because if you make it user-friendly, then the people who aren't really getting pulled into maybe the 10 minutes over the 2 hour, but the downtown abusers are going to take advantage of it. And so we got to find that balance where it's not advantageous for them to do that, but it's less restrictive on our visitors.
What's your thoughts on expanding the time limit from 2 hours to 3 hours?
I think 2 is too short. I've gotten tickets in the 2-hour zone before.
I think MKSK, just in looking at the study.
Spot for 2 hours.
No, I wasn't. No, but if you want to see a movie at the Strand, it gives more time for any kind of arriving early.
I think the 3 hour makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say in that is that if we're going to move them up to 3 hours, man, we got to be enforcing that, you know, because that's just.
I didn't see any issues with the enforcement of the 2 hours, man. There was no wiggle room given.
So Chief, what is Kelsey and between Kelsey and Main Street, I'm assuming they're going to put together something to get out to businesses with someone to get input?
I did notify Main Street that we were making these recommendations, kind of how we were doing it, and it was just a starting point. So Main Street is well aware that we want to have ongoing discussion with the entire downtown community. So I'm sure we can work with Susie, and I can talk to Kelsey, and if that's your direction, I think probably the best thing is figure out how we get that out to everyone and collect comments.
Yeah. And my hope is that we can let them know that these recommendations came from MKSK, and here's the reason. I want them to understand the reasons why we're, you know, expanding the hours from 8 to 8, why we're expanding 3 hours, so they can make an informed decision. You know, does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Absolutely.
Okay. And we had this consultant come in. Here we are, what, a year and a half later.
Right, exactly.
Even the media stuff, we are making a little progress on, but we're working at it. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Anything else on that issue before we?
One other thing, we are, it really doesn't require anything from this body or council, but we are looking at the Park Mobile app. So that was a recommendation, is to make paying easier. And Park Mobile is just a app for your phone. You put a sticker on the meter. People can use their phone to pay for their parking meter and not have to pump quarters. So
That'd be awesome.
we're reviewing the contract right now, so that's in the early stages, but we are moving forward with trying to implement something to make our meters a little more smarter and easier to use.
It's awesome.
Thanks, Jim.
That wouldn't require anything but a sticker.
And
Right.
then you have to have the app, the stickers on
So-
the meter. and it's got
They
numbers.
provide us,
You don't need to change the actual hardware of the meter.
No, the meter will still accept coins if you want to put coins in meter, but it will also function by app if you want to pay that way, and we'll have a back end to see who's paid and who hasn't. So it's still, it's making us a little smarter. Not, I don't think you'd consider it a smart meter, but it's making us work a little smarter.
That makes
And that's not to
sense.
say that we wouldn't eventually transition to the smart meters, because there's a lot more advantages to those. You know, they know when you leave the parking spot, they zero out. And so on. But in the interim, it's a huge improvement. Thanks.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is staff comments.
I do have one item if no one else wants to jump in. I know this committee has worked and been waiting for some resolution on some of the recommendations at the county courthouse. I just wanted to update you right now. We still don't have, we're still negotiating the agreement with the county, so I don't know quite where we're at with that, which agreement we're working on, but I just want to let you know if you walk up there and look at it, the building as it's been built has built into the 2 parking spaces that we eventually will consider removing for security purposes. So that you will see, the building, I believe, will be open later this fall. I think they're expecting occupancy sometime in October. So we're still talking with, I know the administrator and city manager are still talking. Maybe get coordinated on all this stuff so we can make it official, but I just didn't want you to be surprised if you walked up there and saw that. The other item that the county is looking at doing is Marshall Court, which is the driveway that runs from Sandusky. It will be between the 2 buildings in the parking lot. They're contemplating making that a pedestrian walkway and turning it off to vehicular traffic. That has been, there is a resolution to vacate Marshall Court. I think it's supposed to be filed with the construction plans, if I understand it correctly, but it's probably a recommendation that makes sense.
So Chief, is that where the main entrance into that parking lot right now?
It's the parking structure that will be off.
No, into the, like right now, if you go to the Hayes building, there's that big parking lot behind, there's the drive you turn in off Sandusky. Is that Marshall Court? Is that what they're
That's
calling
Marshall Court,
it? So then how would people get into that parking lot?
off of Union Street. Their main entrance would then be off Union Street. They are advertising, but what their plan is to, their employees will be in the parking structure. And then any other employees, they are going to ask to park on the east side of Union Street. So the lot in front of the building on Union Street is for guests and visitors. So it won't be employees, it will be guests, and they'll be entering via Union Street.
Okay, that, my only concern is that part of gaining that lot is the advantage that with people can get to it off Sandusky Street. That's what makes it, I see what they're saying, but it's kind of like we negotiated that so we could have access to that
We
parking
sure did.
downtown. And that entrance off Sandusky is a lot more convenient. And now the parking spaces that we're considering giving up are actually already cemented over, right? So,
Well, I've encouraged them to call engineering to discuss Marshall Court. And I've got a message into John Melvin. I'll try calling him again, but I know
yeah,
I suggested that.
I think that makes it a lot less convenient for people to use that parking.
I know from a fire department standpoint, we'd have some concerns with that as well, because we'd have limited access to that building strictly from the east side and also the west side, where we would not have access to the north and south side, which is the longest part of those buildings. Now, that's not to say they can't allow for emergency purposes only, but I would certainly have concerns were to be vacated permanent, that we would have no access
Well, I'm frustrated
whatsoever.
because you're exactly right. We're giving it the space in front, and then we're going, in return, we're going to have access to the parking structure after, and that was the entrance to go in there. And now it's,
Yeah, and if we lose that entrance off Sandusky, the advantage of having those 160 some spaces is a lot less because people don't know how to get there.
absolutely right.
Although that might be enough. Yeah.
I will relay those concerns to,
Anything else, Chief?
no, thank you.
Yes.
I know I briefly updated you guys on the dynamic speed feedback signs that we have out right now. So we probably have about 8 to 9 more streets that we're going to put them out. And then we'll do a final memo at the end with all the compiled data and our thoughts and recommendations on further use of them. So I know we've gotten some very positive feedback from the residents. I'm just a little disappointed on the data that's come back. It hasn't shown as high as a return as we'd like. I mean, they have done an okay job, and I think especially for the time period that they're out there, they've done well, but what location? We've put them out for West Hall Drive.
Okay, all right.
We've done it
All
at
right.
Cheshire Crossing, and they're on Hawthorne Boulevard right now. So, but like I said, we'll do a final memo at the end of our recommendations and what we think where they could be used, if they could be used. So.
Nothing.
Member comments? Mr. Jones?
Just real quick to engineering, at our last meeting, we had the issue on Buer Drive with that curve and put the huge difference. And I haven't heard whether you guys heard anything back from the residents, but as somebody drives that multiple times a day, I'd see a huge difference if people are actually staying on their side of the road. And it's worked out exactly how you guys planned to do. So.
We have done we did do some speed stealth data collection after, and the speeds haven't quite reduced like we'd like them, but I think if everybody's staying on their side, I know we haven't had any accidents. I did check that today through GCAT just to make sure, and I haven't seen anything come up if you've heard of anything.
I haven't heard anything.
So that's a positive
Yeah.
right there, so.
That's all I had.
Ms. Keller?
I definitely feel a frustration with the Hull Drive residents. And I feel like in this kind of setting, what we're able to do is limited, and I feel like perhaps there might be a perception that the concerns are brushed off when we say, we'll have staff look into it, and they're like, well, when? And we're like, well, it's tough in a meeting like this. So what I'm thinking is, would it make sense to involve the ward rep, which would be Mr. Browning? Just let him know, I'm thinking, Elaine, to just let Mr. Browning know that there were residents here that were concerned, and then perhaps maybe try to put together some sort of working meeting. So that would be maybe a better forum than this.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I highly recommend in a situation like this where we know there's a problem, that we really need to meet with the neighborhood or their representatives, because there are so many different things from parking restrictions to movement restrictions that.
I thought you brought up a great point.
Yeah.
I mean, at a meeting like she's talking about, you would be able to say, well, we could do a left in, right.
We could really get
but
their.
it's gonna,
Absolutely. You could get more of a feeling from them of what they're willing to
People have
try
to
and what
understand the
they're
cause.
willing.
Maybe they're still out in the hallway, and just let them know what we're going to do, that we're going to put together this thing so that they leave knowing that they were heard and that there's a solution on the
We're
way.
actually doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
Take 5 minutes.
No, I think that's really smart way to approach it. Because I share your frustration. It's like, we come back in 3 months and
Right.
we'll wait on the light. And, just. We just wanted to bring up today, Councilwoman Keller has a good idea to kind of keep this thing moving. So,
I felt the frustration of, well, what happens next? And this isn't really a great forum to actually get work done. So we hear the concern for sure though. So what I was thinking was we can involve your ward rep, who's Mr. Browning, and he handles specifically the 3rd ward, and perhaps we can set up something where there's an actual working meeting where the concerns are brought to the table, staff can come up with solutions, and that way that's a better forum than this. This is a great forum to bring the issue to us and then give us that opportunity to set up that meeting so that we can really roll up our sleeves and work on some solutions.
I think we would agree with that this is for you to understand
Absolutely.
what is going on in our neighborhood. We're not asking for a solution tonight.
Right.
Okay? We understand this is not going to happen overnight, that it's going to take some planning, but we'd like to be involved in that. So
I
that
think
would
we
be a
can
great
get that
idea.
set up then. So we'll be in touch and involve the ward rep and get to work on this.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
thank you all for coming down.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do you have Jim's email address?
If you.
I have a couple of them.
Say that, I think you signed in.
I'm not, but I can.
If you want, that would be another way to have it. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
I have nothing. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you.